Picture a city roughly the size of Munich. Now imagine literally every single person in that massive city dealing with a silent daily dependency. That's what we're looking at here. Between 1.5 to 1.9 million people in Germany are currently dependent on prescription medications. It's a staggering number, right? And the crazy part is, it's a reality happening completely under the radar, usually starting with just a standard, well-intentioned trip to the doctor.
Welcome to The Explainer. I am so glad you're joining us today. We are unpacking a topic that affects millions, but somehow rarely makes the front page. We're looking at a hidden epidemic of prescription drug dependency, and we're going to map out exactly how everyday medical helpers can quietly transform into long-term health risks.
Okay, let's dive right in. To truly wrap our heads around the immense scale of this issue, we have to look at the environment where it actually thrives. In the year 2020 alone, the German pharmaceutical market generated 49.5 billion euros in revenue. Germany is the fourth largest pharmaceutical market in the entire world. With such a massive volume of drugs circulating out there, tracking improper use becomes incredibly difficult. The sheer availability sets the stage for a massive, often completely invisible problem.
Now, just so we're clear right out of the gate, we aren't just speculating or making guesses here. Every single piece of data, every warning sign, and every solution we cover in this explainer is derived directly and neutrally from the official guidelines published by the German Medical Association. They put together this incredibly comprehensive guide to help doctors navigate the complex terrain of drug use and dependency, and we are going to break it all down together.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with Section 1, Germany's silent epidemic. Then we'll look at benzodiazepines and Z-drugs. Next, the warning signs for dependency, followed by a stark look at opioids on the rise. Finally, we'll wrap up with safe paths and alternatives.
Section 1, Germany's silent epidemic. You might picture a very specific type of person when you hear the word addiction, but actually, older individuals and women are particularly at risk here. The transition from a proper medical prescription to a harmful dependency is just dangerously subtle.
Move into Section 2, benzodiazepines and Z-drugs. These are incredibly common medications. We're talking about your standard sleeping pills or anxiety meds. They work great in the short term, but they are actually the leading cause of medication dependency.
Check out these numbers from the public health insurance data. From 2010 to 2019, public prescriptions really dropped. Benzodiazepines fell from 39 million defined daily doses, which is basically 1 day of treatment for one person, all the way down to 13 million, and Z-drugs dropped from 81 million down to 65 million. On paper, that looks like a massive win, but here's the catch. Experts are really worried that those massive volumes haven't just vanished. They're likely just shifting over to hidden private prescriptions, completely masking the true scale of the ongoing consumption.
And here's a medical fact that catches almost everyone off guard. We usually assume getting addicted means constantly needing to up your dose to get the same hit, right? But with benzodiazepines, there's this phenomenon called low-dose dependency. This means you can become hopelessly, physically, and psychologically hooked without ever upping your dose or building a tolerance. You take exactly what the doctor prescribed in the exact small amount and still end up dependent. It's wild.
Section 3, Warning Signs for Dependency. Because this whole process happens so quietly, how did doctors, or even family members, actually recognize that this epidemic has entered their home?
Seriously, how do you spot a harmful dependency before it spirals completely out of control? Well, the medical guidelines actually tell us to zoom out from the biology and instead look really closely at human behavior.
So the crucial point here is that dependency completely changes how a person interacts with their healthcare provider. Warning signs include a patient regularly and forcefully demanding their prescription. They might start dodging face-to-face conversations with the doctor, preferring to just grab the recipe from the front desk or insisting it be mailed to them. They might even start doctor shopping, visiting multiple different doctors and pharmacies so that no single professional notices the sheer volume of pills they're actually taking. It really becomes a life of hiding.
Section 4, Opioids on the Rise. While benzodiazepines have been an issue for a long time, the German Medical Association highlights another drug class that needs immediate attention: powerful opioid painkillers.
If we put these trends side by side, the shift in the medical landscape is impossible to ignore. While the official public prescriptions for benzodiazepines have been trending downward, highly potent opioids are marching upwards. For example, just between 2015 and 2016, prescriptions for oxycodone increased by 7.5% and hydromorphone went up by 9.5%. The dependency landscape is actively shifting toward these incredibly powerful, highly addictive painkillers.
To put that into perspective, in the year 2019 alone, 439 million defined daily doses of opioid analgesics were prescribed in Germany. That's about 1% of all public health insurance prescriptions. The volume of these potent drugs out there in the system is just vast, which makes sticking to strict prescription guidelines absolutely vital.
Section 5. Safe paths and alternatives. Statistics like the ones we just saw can feel pretty grim, but the German Medical Association does provide highly structured guidelines to help doctors prescribe safely and help patients find much healthier alternatives.
Let's look at how this builds into a practical framework. The guidelines push this golden standard known in German as the 5K Regel for safe prescribing. First, a clear indication. There has to be a real acute need. Second, use the smallest possible dose. Third, the shortest possible time frame. For benzodiazepines, that is strictly 8 to 14 days, max 28. Fourth, never stop the medication abruptly, because withdrawals can be severe. And fifth, observe contraindications. Basically, the doctor has to stay firmly in the driver's seat, setting the dose and the exact end date from day one.
Now, this strict timeline totally makes sense, but if you can only take sleep medication for 2 weeks, it begs an incredibly common patient question. What am I supposed to do if my sleep issues are chronic? If a pill isn't the long-term answer, what actually is? This is where the medical guidelines transform into a highly practical toolkit, emphasizing that non-pharmacological behavioral steps are the true first-line treatment for insomnia. It's all about sleep hygiene. This means actively reducing the total time you spend in bed to build up natural sleep pressure. It means absolutely no daytime naps, even if you had a terrible night. You have to use the bed exclusively for sleep, no reading, no watching TV. And honestly, perhaps the hardest but most effective rule, if you are tossing and turning, you literally have to get up, leave the bedroom, and only return when you are actually tired. You're retraining your brain to associate the bed with sleeping, not with being awake and stressed.
And this quote right here brilliantly illustrates the core philosophy of the medical guidelines. It isn't just about handing over a piece of paper with some rules on it, it's about active psychoeducation. Doctors are urged to discuss these habits deeply, to really understand what obstacles the patient is facing at home. Understanding and changing your daily habits beats relying on a temporary, potentially addictive pill for long-term health every single time.
We've covered a ton of ground today, from the massive scale of the prescription drug market to the sneaky traps of low-dose dependency, and finally to the behavioral changes that actually offer a safe way forward. It leaves us with a provocative thought to reflect on. Take a moment to consider the routines in your own life. Are the everyday medical helpers in your household genuinely aiding your well-being, or could they be silently harming your long-term health? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and stay focused.